What's up, guys? Jason of New Age Revolution down here in the cave for a Sunday afternoon video. It is a balmy Sunday here in upstate New York. About to go in the pool after I do some gardening. Got a couple of plants, hardy hibiscus for the old garden. They were on sale. And I got to dig a hole and put them in, and you absolutely don't care about that, and I understand. It's Wrestling with the Past. We're gonna finish up. Ooh, almost spilled the beer. We're going to finish up June. We're almost done with June. I did spill a little of the beer. Not good. We're done with June, so we're going to talk about the last 3 shows in June. We got a TNT and 2 Championship Wrestling episodes to go before we get into July. Now, if you notice behind me, I've made an addition to the room again. There she is, yet another record player stereo thing. This is probably the 90s. It's probably like a 1990 or 91. I'm done with stereos. For a guy that doesn't really care about music, I've been driving myself nuts trying to get these cheap stereos off of Facebook because I never check them, right? They're always like unplugged and all the speakers are disconnected and I never check them. I'm always like, so the record player works, right? And they're like, oh yeah, I listened to it yesterday. 3 times that has happened to me. Once at a garage sale and twice on Marketplace. And then every time I message them, they just block me. So, yeah. So finally, this lady was kind enough to play a Lionel Richie album for me when I went to pick it up. Just a few bucks later, we got another stereo. And I probably will never listen to it. But we got it. Okay, June 19th, Tuesday Night Titans. Here we go. First of all, we have a Hulk Hogan Dr. D. David Schultz match from Minneapolis. Okay, so David Schultz against Hulk Hogan in AWA territory. And what a great match. I mean, TNT was a 2-hour show. And on the WWE Network, it's like an hour and 40 minutes. So the matches that they show aren't necessarily, too clipped or too short. Usually you get pretty close to a full match, especially the longer matches. You get most of it. The shorter TV matches, you get all of it. But so what we got from Minnesota, or at the start of the show. They're showcasing Hulk Hogan a little bit, and they're starting to showcase his pop culture fame, right? So they show him on, I think, like Johnny Carson or the Joan Rivers show or something like that, and doing some charity stuff. So, like, Hulkamania is starting to take over. Only 5 months after winning the world title, they're already starting to establish him as this superhero, almost worldwide at this point. Certainly nationwide. So then we get the Hulk Hogan David Schultz match, which is probably one of Hulk Hogan's better matches. Very competitive back and forth match. I mean, just a weird Hulk Hogan match because it's not a Hulk Hogan style. It's more of like his style in Japan. If you want to see Hulk Hogan like actually wrestle, look at some of his Japan stuff from like '84. It's fantastic. Hogan versus Stan Hansen is like an awesome match. But Hogan versus Schultz is very good. And it's a strange match. Hulk Hogan hits the leg drop, and instead of getting the pin, Dr. D rolls out of the ring and, both bleed pretty good. David Schultz, great match. Hogan versus Schultz from Minneapolis, Minnesota. AWA turf. Fantastic match. From there, we get... So both Vashons are in the WWF at this time. Butcher Paul Vashon and Maurice Mad Dog Vashon. And they're bad guys. right? They're bad guys, and they're like, you know, sort of George the Animal Steel-ish, you know, with their shtick and their wildness and their, you know, out of control behavior to a degree, right? Like a very watered down. But anyway, they're bad guys. They're super bad guys. But on TNT, I wrote down Paul Vashon. It might have been Maurice. I think it was the Mad Dog instead of the Butcher. Who's the... No, I think it was the Butcher. I think, yeah, it was. It was the Butcher. So they have Paul Butcher Vashon on, and they spin him as the sweetest guy in the world. He comes out like fully dressed in like a, you know, almost like a shirt and tie type of thing. And then they let him sing. They informed the audience that indeed Paul Vashon is a singer. You know, and then of course there's a TNT band. So Paul Vashon goes over to the band and, hey guys, strike up a tune, and he sings like this, I don't know, French tune. but he's like, again, there's no, and then they go to a match. They go to a match with Paul Butcher Vashon against Jimmy Snuka. And I remember watching that match. It's actually in 83. I'm pretty sure 83, late 83, when Snuka's a good guy, obviously. And Vashon gets in all of the offense. I might have talked about it. I think it's like January or February 84. It's very early in 84. Vashon gets all the offense, and then Jimmy Snuka hits the Superfly leap and gets the pin out of nowhere. But the whole match is Vashon offense for like 4 minutes. But I just found it so strange that they're, you know, that they portray the Vashons as animals, but then when they go to interview him, just a nice, sweet guy, very complimentary of Lord Alfred Hayes, and talks about his brothers and sisters, and, you know, just wild, you know, just crazy how they, you know, kind of not expose the business, but, you know, he's not supposed to be a nice guy, the Butcher. Then we've got Captain Lou Albano, and oh yeah, so Captain Lou Albano's on the show, and he's gross, right? So he's sitting there with he purposely like comes out with the shirt open, the fat, you know, he's got a cup. It's like a spit cup, and he keeps like burping and spitting into the cup, and it's the most disgusting thing I have ever seen. And Vince McMahon keeps making these amazing faces, you know, as like. Lou Albano's just like, you know, he keeps doing that, and McMahon is just like, you know, oh, get a hold of yourself. It's great. It's great. So you know, Lou is talking about Cyndi Lauper and all that, and then after Lou is David Wolf as the guest, and David Wolf, I think, well, I know, was Cyndi Lauper's like musical manager person, but also at one point her boyfriend. And so they bring this non-actor, this non-performer, David Wolf, into the mix, and he does great. So he comes out to set the record straight, and then in the background you hear Lou Albano screaming, you know, and he keeps calling Cyndi Lauper a barroom broad, and that's so hilarious that he keeps like every interview that he does, that's his go-to. You know, I took her from this, I took her from that, I took her from a barroom broad, and I made her into a lady. You know, which is great. So David Wolf is like, no way, you're crazy. Lou Albano comes out, doesn't get too physical with David Wolf, but roughs, you know, kind of grabs him a little bit. Vince McMahon's trying to stop everything, and David Wolf at this point is like, this is just ridiculous. You know, I'm out of here. Okay. Then they cut to an interview, which is very good, very funny. We've got, and this is the first time this airs, so this airs all throughout the last week in June. We have Cyndi Lauper, and Roddy Piper hosts this whole thing. So they go to a weird Roddy Piper interview. He's standing at a black backdrop with a WWF sign. He's got the non-traditional Piper outfit on. He's got like the black and gray kilt and the yellow T-shirt. And so he kind of hosts this, and he says, "Okay, you know, let's show you this interview." And so Cyndi Lauper is in her record studio, and David Wolf is there, and, you know, they're mixing whatever, something together. Piper comes in with the microphone, and Cyndi Lauper says, you know, she keeps calling Captain Lou the fat man. So, you know, she just keeps referring to his weight. You're the fattest, you're the fat man. Let me tell you this, you fat bag of wind. You know, it's all that. It's fantastic. In her little Cyndi Lauper voice. So basically the whole thing is, Cyndi Lauper is basically starting the march to WrestleMania. Okay? And we don't even know it yet. So she's saying, okay, Lou, all right, Lou, you fat bag of wind, you know, I'm going to show you that you don't know anything in music and you don't know anything in wrestling. Because I'm going to go out and get myself a wrestler, and she's going to beat your wrestler, Lou. So that's the whole thing. Cyndi Lauper is going to go get a wrestler, and that person is going to take on Captain Lou's wrestler. Okay, great. Right? Back then we didn't know what's coming. Now we do. We know what this is leading to. This is the next few months of WWF TV are massive. Okay? So that's that. Now, finally, June 19th, TNT, we've got the Piper's Pit Jimmy Snuka incident that happened 2 weeks ago. They haven't talked about it since. Probably because of the taping schedule and what have you. But it just happened, and then for a couple of weeks it went away. We didn't talk about it. Well, now, Jimmy Snuka is a guest on TNT. And he comes out, very serious, and they show the Piper's Pit, the attack. And now they're starting to talk about it. 10 days, 2 weeks later, they're starting to talk about it. Except Jimmy Snuka is the absolute worst interview in the world. The absolute worst interview in the world. We have joked about it on the channel. He is horrendous. And how much better could this feud have been if Jimmy Snuka would have just said something, right? Or maybe not. I don't know. Maybe that's what made it so great, was that he just didn't say anything productive. So the worst idea in the world is to have a TNT interview with Vince McMahon trying to play very straight and ask Jimmy Snuka what's going on in his head, and Jimmy Snuka can't answer. So it goes something like this. It goes like, you know, Jimmy Snuka, you know, how do you feel about Piper's Pit? What happened to you? And he goes, you know, he gets real close to, you know, he like sits up in the chair and he goes, first of all, the people out there need to know this, what this means for you people in your hearts. Right? And that's it. And then Snuka says, what? Or McMahon says, you know, Jimmy, you know, what would you say to Roddy Piper? And then Jimmy Snuka's like, I ask you people this. What in your hearts do you see when you look at the truth? Roddy Piper, the truth. And then McMahon is trying to make the best of it, and he's like, yes, Jimmy Snuka, you're going to show Roddy Piper the truth. And then Piper gets, or Snuka gets up, and he's mad, and he's like, you know, why? You know, and he's just walking. Ah, horrendous. Absolutely horrendous. Jimmy Snuka, horrible. Horrible interview. Horrible. Worse than the Ultimate Warrior. Horrible. That's it for TNT, June 19th. We got a Championship Wrestling June 23rd. They re-show the Samoans versus Adrian Adonis and Dick Murdoch 2 out of 3 Falls tag team match from MSG just like a week earlier, 2 weeks earlier. And as a kid, I don't remember them doing that. I don't remember them showing main event MSG style matches on Championship Wrestling on Saturday mornings. This show is from the Boston market because when they do the in-between, you know, when they do the localized promos, it's for the Boston Garden house shows, which are great. We'll talk about those in a minute. But I don't remember them, showing house show matches on Championship Wrestling. After that, we've got Bulldog Buzz Sawyer, and he's really only in the WWF for like maybe a month longer. I'm surprised that he's been in this long. But Buzz Sawyer is legitimate crazy and legitimate cokehead. And he has to be one or both of those things. Just his like rapid fire presentation and yeah, they can perform and do some shtick, but when you watch Buzz Sawyer, like, there's something going on with him. He just sat in a bathroom stall with a mirror and a credit card all by himself for a little while, I betcha. Now, so after Buzz Sawyer, now we're continuing on the Cyndi Lauper, Captain Lou thing. So now we have a segment where Roddy Piper is sitting in Captain Lou's living room, and it's like, it's like a gross 80s living room, and Lou's sitting there with his shirt open and potato chips all over his chest, and Piper's sitting next to him interviewing him, and he's bashing Cyndi Lauper. And then they cut to the interview that we saw at TNT. So they show the Piper in Lauper's studio again. She's going to get a wrestler, and it's on. Then they go back to Lou, and he says, I accept, and he's got milk, right? He's got a cup of something white. It looks like milk. And he just keeps spilling the cup on himself so that he kind of dribbles it and spits it, and it's all over his beard because he keeps going, I accept, and he keeps hitting himself with milk, so there's milk all over the place. It's so beautiful. It's so good. I just love it so much. I love it. And I'm watching it unfold. I'm watching it happen. All right. Then we also have a very strange match from Championship Wrestling. It's not a house show match. It's Tito Santana versus Greg Valentine, non-title Intercontinental title match. Again, very weird, really high caliber main event style match on a Saturday morning Championship Wrestling. Tito wins by count out. Sorry, Tito's counted out of the ring. So far we've got a couple of house show matches with Tito and Greg. We've got a TV show match with Tito and Greg. Pretty soon, Greg Valentine is going to injure Tito Santana's leg and take the Intercontinental title. It's a figure four thing, the broken leg with the figure four. And then we're going to get some really classic Tito interviewed from hospital bed stuff. And I love that. I remember it. Again, the localized interviews, I don't know what the deal was. I think they did them before TV, so you'd get there early. You'd basically do it in the arena, I assume, because they're standing in front of a ring with a blacked out tarp behind them, maybe cutting off the seats. And, they probably cut a ton of them for big-time house shows. So this one is for the Boston Gardens. And this is one of those non-believable things that even a kid would be like, what on earth is going on? Because let's say they're going to have Iron Sheik versus Sergeant Slaughter in a boot camp match, right? Which they are advertising. Two guys that hate each other so much, right? So they'll interview Sergeant Slaughter. Mean Gene will, come on in, Sergeant Slaughter, and boot camp match. And he's, you're gonna bleed, Iron Sheik, and spitting all over the place. Then he leaves, right? And then, Tony Garea comes in and says, yeah, I'm gonna beat this guy. Then he leaves, and then Iron Sheik comes in, right? So I'm thinking, like, how is Sergeant Slaughter and Iron Sheik not just tearing each other to shreds? They're right there, right? They're there together. It's crazy. They didn't even try to, like, kayfabe that at all, right? They're just standing right next to each other, interviewing. No big deal. Maybe they're just, maybe Vince was like, don't touch each other or you'll be fined and suspended. I don't know how they, but they didn't even try to explain why are they right there at the same interview. Crazy. Now, these interview segments are legendary because a lot of times, many times, these are all unscripted promos, guys. You know, they're like, okay, Boston Gardens, you know, 2 out of 3 falls match, you against Piper, okay, go. And these guys have to just talk right out of their behinds. And so you get a lot of repetition. They, you know, Sergeant Slaughter would talk about, you know, the Marine hymn, and then Iron Sheik is going to hear taps at the end of the match, and he said that in many, many, many interviews. Like, that was his go-to line. But a lot of times the guys are just so garbled or tongue-tied, and they can't bring it home, and they just can't make a point. And you see Mean Gene many times start cracking up. I hate to keep going back to Sergeant Slaughter, but at one point, again, during these boot camp matches, he said something to the effect of, like, the flag doesn't hit the ground. This is when Terry Daniels, I think, was attacked by the Iron Sheik, but never let the U.S. flag hit the ground. So Sergeant Slaughter was, you don't let the flag hit the ground. You know, there's a lot of men in that ground, buried in that ground. You don't spit on the ground that these soldiers are buried in. And then he goes, my mother is in the ground. And totally serious. And you know, Mean Gene is like, you know, and he looks away, and then the camera pans close up to Sergeant Slaughter because they know Mean Gene is absolutely losing it. It's so good. It's so good. And it happens so often. Guys, I cannot tell you how much I'm in love with this product at this period of time. All right, the final show of June is a championship wrestling show, June 30th. So the next week. Now we are advancing the Captain Lou Cyndi Lauper storyline, because now we have a clip of Captain Lou in a bar, and Moolah is arm wrestling men and beating them. And Captain Lou has chosen Moolah as his person to go against Cyndi Lauper's person. But we still don't know yet. So we know that Moolah is Captain Lou's choice. Moolah, I looked it up, guys. I looked it up. I did the math. Moolah in 1984 is 61 years old and looks every part of her 61 years old. She is a mess. I mean, she's an old lady. She's 61 years old. She looks like my grandma. She reminded me very much of I haven't seen my grandma since 2009. Moolah reminded me of my grandma. And we're supposed to believe that she is a formidable challenge at 61 years old. Now we cut to Cyndi Lauper, and she's standing above a high-rise, or she's on a building. She's on top of she's on a rooftop, and you know it's on Cyndi Lauper, and then it kind of she's like, "Lou, I gotta wrestle a Lou," and then it pans over to Wendy Richter, who previously in like late '83, very early '84, Wendy Richter was in the WWF. She was in a tag team. She actually teamed with Moolah a few times. And she was Cowgirl Wendy Richter. So she was like from Texas, and she did, she had a cowboy hat. So she was Cowgirl Wendy Richter. Well, now we pan to Wendy Richter, and the WWF wants you to forget that she ever existed as Cowgirl Wendy Richter, because she's now like made up 80s Cyndi Lauper style MTV Wendy Richter, with like the big earrings and the sunglasses, and her hair's all teased up. Well, she's doing curls, of course, right? And she cuts a little promo. I'm coming to get you, Moolah. And Cyndi Lauper calls Moolah Moolah, which is great. Moolah, So she got, so then She Bop starts to play, a great Cyndi Lauper song. She Bop starts to play, and we do the Wendy Richter pose down. So Wendy Richter starts posing, and we got She Bop, and then they cut back to Cyndi Lauper, and she does the weirdest thing ever. And I don't know if this was like an 80s like punk thing, but at the end of the interview, to like close out the interview, she like does this weird smile with her teeth and like sticks her face real close to the camera, and she's like she does like that, like it's so weird. But I think it was like badass, like 20-year-old 80s punk thing. It was horrible. That was so bad and so great. So great. You can tell I'm really excited about this. All right, what else? We've got George Animal Steel on this card takes on Jose Luis Rivera. Jose takes a massive bump over the top rope. He just gets thrown out of the ring, almost never even touches the top rope, and lands on what appears to be a very hard gymnasium floor on his tailbone. Just looks wrecked. George Steele is in full-on turnbuckle mode, and I would always love how McMahon got so grossed out that George Steele was ripping open the turnbuckle and throwing styrofoam all around the ring. He would just have these horrible reactions, like, oh, look at that, you know, and it's styrofoam. It's not like he's ripping open a squirrel and just, you know, tossing the entrails everywhere. It's styrofoam, right? And McMahon is selling it like, oh my God, disgusting. What else we got? Oh, okay, so for the second time, so George Steele beats up Jose Luis Rivera, and as Rivera is still in the ring being tended to, Joe McHugh gets the mic and once again randomly introduces Hulk Hogan. So Hulk Hogan comes out and walks around the ring and slaps high five and then like looks to the ring and sees Jose Luis Rivera, you know, hurting, you know, what should I do? And he goes in the ring and he's helping up Jose Luis Rivera. George the Animal Steel and Mr. Fuji come back to the ring. Hogan, you know, squares off against them. George Steele never takes a punch or anything, just hops over the top rope, takes off, and Hulk Hogan helps up Jose Luis Rivera, raises his hand, and gives Rivera like the biggest moment of his life, right? And that's it. That is June 1984. My God, we are here. It is so good. I love it so much. Yeah, so basically what they're doing is they're going nationwide, and we don't even know it yet. You know, they're hooking up with MTV. We're going to get the Brawl. I think, what was it called? The Brawl. It's not the Brawl for All. It's like the Brawl to end it all and then the War to settle the score or something like that. And all of those are MTV-sponsored shows that get to WrestleMania. It's happening and we don't even know it. And it's all because of Wendy Richter and Moolah and the Fat Man and Cyndi Lauper and Dave Wolf. That's it. Beautiful. Beautiful stuff. Can't wait to get into July 1984. That's what's coming up next, according to the calendar. Good night now.